call this I'm going to call this meeting to order, and pursuant to Governor Baker's order back in March 2020, we will be hosting this meeting remotely. To see the full participation guidelines, you can find that on the town website. We will start with attendance. Greg Marr.
Here.
Sue Robbins.
Here.
Kyle James.
Here.
Amy Marr.
Here.
Colleen Roy's present, and for town staff, we have Evan Broussard.
Here I am.
All right, so to get things started, it's pretty much going to be Evan's show tonight, I would say, for the most part. So do you have the ability to share the screen if you wanted to? Do you see that there?
Let me check. I should be able to, yes.
Awesome. So first up we have is to review the capital warrants. So have at it.
Okay. So really how we're going to approach that this year, and I think it's fairly similar to other years, but we are writing this your capital budget sections in 2 articles. So you break it apart into borrowing and not borrowing. And so you had voted to borrow funds to replace engine 1, and we had talked a while back about whether or not leasing or bonding was the way to go. And so I think that that's still going to be up in the air until you get closer to the time we actually have to come up with money. Because a lot of things can happen in the bond market. The rates can change. Your bond proceeds can change. And so, I think we want to feel that out and vet that against borrowing via the bond market or borrowing, via a leasing company. We'll see how those 2 things interact. But so you'll see that Article 12 and this language will be tweaked beforehand, but it's basically to see if the town will vote to borrow the funds for engine 1. And so this is something that needs to change here. William's doing the running point on this, and so we go back and forth. We're actually meeting tomorrow on this, but this you're going to authorize the borrowing of the entire amount, and then how it gets amortized is up to us when it comes time to actually borrow the money. So now let me hit pause there for 1 second. Now with a fire truck, you can't borrow it for more than 5 years. So it doesn't matter if you're bonding or leasing, it's going to be a 5-year note. This recommendation here from the Finance Committee, when they make their recommendation, will be for the full amount of borrowing. And then the second part is going to appropriate the entire amount that you had discussed, which is your 1.275 million, towards a program of this will change a little too. It's going to say lease payments or borrowed funds on capital items, purchases, improvements, and special articles generally listed in Appendix B. And then, hold on, I gotta move you folks over so that I can scroll here. Okay. And then when we get to the end of the articles here, this will be Appendix B, which is your document that you've already done. And so that will direct people, every single item will be on the warrant, but it'll just be broken up into 2 articles, borrowing versus non-borrowing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
We can't hear you, Colleen.
Hi.
Hi.
I see George Hill Engineering made it on there. Is that happening?
I believe so. This is what I took out of the file at the office.
So we had not recommended funding for that this year. We suggested to get more information from the engineer and instead used money to either save it and put it towards that capital fund kind of build up, or other projects that were needed.
So you didn't want to fund the engineering study of that?
I remember us shying away from it this year, wanting more information about it because we weren't sure we were going to be able to go forward with the project readily. So even if we did the engineering and then a couple more years go by and now it's not as accurate anymore and there was holdup in that department, but anyone jump in if I'm misremembering that or.
I think
Yeah,
part of the
decide.
question was also that would all of the 385,000 come up in the first year? Or was there some smaller portion of it that would make sense to do in the first year and then continuing engineering the following year? And I think that was something that we recommended to discuss with that. And if we did that, it would allow a few more things going down the list to come in based on the money we were working from at the time, which I think we already have a few more things beyond that anyways.
I think we had decided to put the George Hill for one of the top 10 and in the capital planning for next year. So I don't know if all these numbers are going to add up to
Yeah, they will.
1.275.
Okay.
There'll be more, it's more than that right now.
Yes, I agree.
So if you take the 385 out, we might be closer to the number we need.
Okay. We'll work on that tomorrow.
Should I have
So-
invited William? I feel really bad that I didn't think to do that.
Now he's been overworking himself. He can take a night off.
Oh, okay, good.
Quite frankly, I always see him show up in the panelists. I'm like, stop doing that. In the attendees rather. We can vet this. And so this document is going to be sent out to all your boards and committees to check their articles and make sure that we haven't, misconstrued anything or made any mistakes. But I will make sure that our chart here adds up to what we 1.275.
Okay, so we did get all the way down to the funding line that we were looking to get to with just a portion of the George Hill Road funding. We were also projecting working from 1.2 million with that was including the engine one at 125,000 for the first year.
I think when we talked to Carter the last time, though, we had said that we would consider 1.275 though.
So this is what I inherited in the drive, this folder.
Yeah.
So
South Grafton Elementary School is not in there, and that was recommended at this time,
okay.
and that was 152,000. That fell between master plan and George Hill, so that was above George Hill, the repave the South Grafton Elementary School.
Right. That was for the disability, right?
I think that played a part, yes.
And how much was coming out of, Evan, how much was coming out of the capital fund?
Let me scroll back up. Let me save that comment. Oh, everybody close their eyes while I scroll. Okay.
Okay, so Article 12, that 140,000 is the 1-year cost, assuming a lease. The actual cost is 740,000.
Got it. Thank you.
And since it's in Article 12, we should pull it out of Article 13, right?
No, so what you're doing is you are authorizing, the town is authorizing you, excuse me, let me start again. The town is authorizing you to borrow the money in 12. You then have to have authorization from the town to appropriate the money,
Okay,
because this is Massachusetts and we do everything extremely complicatedly. If there were no other items, we could do an article that just borrows and appropriates, but I think because you have this whole capital plan, I wouldn't make this. I think that it's simpler to just say, we're asking you to borrow it. We're asking you to basically tell us we can spend it, and that's it. So anything else glaring on here so far? So it's 500 from capital stabilization, 775 from certified free cash.
so what does that leave in capital stabilization?
Should leave 300,000, I would think. We only had 800,000 in there.
No, we didn't. We had that 360 because that super park money went in there, and there was about 100,000 that was kind of sitting in there already.
The backup 360, where?
So that's a combination of when we took the vote last spring, the super park money went back into the municipal capital stabilization account, and there was about a miscellaneous 100,000 kind of give or take floating in there already. So that
Right.
that had that account at a pretty healthy amount, and then we added 800,000 to it. So I would imagine it's probably close between 500,000 and 600,000. I was just wondering, just to know where we're going for the future.
Oh,
how much is
I
left.
can have Mary pull that trial balance.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, so. Sorry, just give me one sec. Okay. So are we good with the warrant for now?
I think
Okay.
That transfer of. Oh, okay. Line 4 of Article 13, 775, not 770.50.
Yeah, it hasn't been proofread all the way.
I was trying to read it.
This is a draft document.
Yeah. It's just
So,
something.
but I'll make that change. Thank you.
Okay.
all right.
Okay. Let us move on. So now that one other thing that Colleen had wanted me to talk about was kind of what we have as for things that are on our insurance roll that you might not be capturing. And so let me show you how we are starting to back into that. Let me go and share this different document here. So this is our fleet schedule. So this is every piece of equipment that we're paying insurance on that, generally speaking, has wheels or tracks or can be driven by somebody. And so this is going to capture, all of our trucks, all of our tractors, everything. And it's going to tell us, some pretty finite, some pretty decent data. However, what this is, fleet schedules are not going to obviously tell you your building stock. And I think that capital wise, that's generally speaking where you have your most vulnerability, because things get missed very easily. And so in order to have a really good capital plan, you need to be having some kind of an assessment of your buildings on an annual basis. And that doesn't mean you have to pay for that above and beyond, but you can have maintenance folks say do a roof assessment every year, right? They can go up there. We actually get credits for our insurance by doing this as well. So they'll go up there and take a walk around and look at the scuppers and any penetrations in that roof and see what that's looking like. But they can do, you can take that all the way down to boilers, electrical, that kind of stuff. And so we can utilize an assessment to capture more of that, so that you stop getting the, we need $100,000 to replace the electrical panel at town hall, right? And so we should be capturing that on these assessments and then pushing that forward and then coming up with a plan on how you're gonna maintain these spaces. I think we see that come up, especially when we were going through the FinCom process, which I thought was great because I learned, a lot every time we went into that. But one of the things that, you start to recognize is that you have like the Nelson Library, right? And we're spending $1,500 a year on general maintenance. But there's really no overarching assessment that says, that roof, beyond somebody telling you that roof's good, we're not capturing, at least I haven't seen it anywhere, we're capturing that roof is new as of 2009, right? And so if it's a asphalt shingle roof, and depending on the product you bought, you got maybe 30 years that we should be planning for that and know that that's going to have to come up. And so we should probably look at implementing something along those lines to start trying to capture that. And so do you want to go into any detail on this, or do you want me to I can send this out at a future date and you can look at what our fleet schedule looks like?
I think sending it out at a future date will help, and then everyone can kind of digest it and find where the questions are.
Okay. Yeah, you got a pretty decent sized fleet.
It's interesting to hear, though, that the buildings are the more vulnerable than the vehicles and machines.
Yeah, people are really good in my experience. People are very good at capturing the trucks and the cars and the tractors, and because they're using that stuff every day and they're thinking about the shelf life or the useful lifespan of that item. Whereas the building, you're in it until the roof leaks, and then you go, oh, roof leaks, I need a roof. And then you go, oh, well, that's $1.8 million, right? Because they're crazy money for roofs and stuff. And now you're caught blindsided with how the heck you're going to try to fund that. I don't know. I can't even tell you how many times I've done a walkthrough and I'm looking at a building and there's, effluence inside of the building, which is indicative of the block. It's grabbing moisture somewhere and moving it from one conditioned space to an unconditioned space. And, those, now all of a sudden you get bricks falling, you get all this other stuff that starts happening. And once that happens, it's already too late. You got to catch that, pretty quick. So I think that we'll be able to do that. One thing I wanted to show you folks that we were doing, oops, not that button. Hold on one sec. I got something else. I promise. If I can figure out how to get this to come up. Here we go. So in Munson, we would do this thing and we called it our capital planning summit. Excuse me, sorry. How do I get this thing to work? I'm not used to this Google platform here. There we go. So we would call it a capital planning summit, which is a little facetious because it's not that fancy. And it's pretty basic, but we would hold a capital summit and we would make all the department heads come, and we would do two things. One, we would sit down with the fleet schedules and building assessments and all of the data that we would gather in the spring and summer. And then, in the fall, we'd sit down and do this, and we would make this really a lesson in why capital planning and how capital planning works. And so for a lot of people, this is pretty basic, but I found that there was a good amount of people that, even though they'd been working in municipal government for a decade or more, weren't thinking about things in the different way that we wanted them to be thinking about it, right? So we got to a point in Munson where everybody was really excited about the capital plan. They liked it because they were actually getting things replaced and they had viable equipment again. And so we wanted to keep up that momentum. And so we started getting people to look at, okay, so it's not just you've got in your case, 800,000 capital stabilization fund and some free cash. there's other places to fund capital items that are going to take some of that load off of those other funding sources. So whether that's grants, moving stuff to the ops budget, which we've been talking about, like the police cruisers. Yes, they're capital, but they're every year we're spending the money. So do we just put them into the operational budget if we can afford to do that? Grants, obviously MSBA stuff for the schools. Are we bonding things intelligently? And then I don't, this is from 2019. I don't remember what strategic and consistent message meant, but I bet I had a really good point for that. So then the other piece is efficiency. And so municipal government is generally not really good at thinking about efficiency, right? And so one of the things that we started to look at is putting in place a basic needs assessment, which is what we were just talking about with buildings. But it's also, you can use that for trucks and tractors and whatever else. Return on investments, or what we call an alternatives evaluation, or human capital, which is skills versus talent, right? And so what I'm getting to is we start looking at capital as a means of return on investment rather than just making the donuts, right? Well, that truck is this old, we got to get another truck. We need to start thinking about all of the things that we do on a daily basis and look at them from a return on investment standpoint. So, are we paying staff $8,000 a year to do a function that if we spent 20 grand and bought a piece of equipment, it would take them, we would pay them $500 a year to do it. And in 3 years, you've now paid for that piece of equipment because you freed up your human capital to do the other things that aren't getting done, right? And so basically this is the last iteration of the capital summit that we did. People really got on board with this return on investment idea because they don't really think about that in municipal government because they don't think about spending taxpayer money as an investment in trying to get that bottom line to work for you, right? So we started looking at, identifying gaps, alternative approaches, non-physical capital options such as human capital. And then we also looked at alternatives for contracting out, privatizing the activity, leasing, or whether other existing assets can be used, which is generally asset sharing, diversification of what type of equipment we're buying, things like that. So I used this example for this machine that I wanted and got because it was awesome. And I was able to prove ROI plays out. So this piece of equipment is what's called a Ventrac. So a Ventrac is like an 8-wheeled articulated thing that cuts hills and swamps and stuff like that, and also can do snow removal, salting. It's pretty cool. So we were paying somebody to do high angle mowing at the schools, and that was $5,000 annually. We were mowing detention basins, which they were wet, and you needed something with high flotation. So this is we could either pay $2,500 annually, or this was my a little bit of snark here because they didn't maintain one of the detention basins and it cost us $168,000. So that was my little dig in there. But so anyways, sidewalk snow removal and salt distribution, we were paying between $5,000 and $8,000, which is $12,500 annually. The Ventrac was $55,000 plus maybe $1,000 for maintenance, and that was kind of generous. That's what we would spend at year 10, not year 1. But the question becomes, do we have necessary people in-house that can do this, and do they have the capability of doing that? Which both questions wound up being answered yes. So when you cost all of that out, you wind up with a return on investment of 4.8 years, right? Now, the cool thing about this particular purchase is that it actually wound up being more like 2 years because once we got it, we had figured out some other things that we could use it for that we were paying other people to do. And we could do it in a fraction of time ourselves for a fraction of the cost. So then, is this a good purchase, right? You gotta have that obligatory slide there. And so anyways, so this is when we were talking about timeline, I'd like to get people to start thinking about their capital in the spring. In Munson, we actually did capital purchases in 2 shifts. In the fall, right after your free cash is certified, and then again in the spring, and we would hold some back so that we could take care of things in the spring, because invariably something would crop up over the winter time that we were not anticipating. A dump truck would spin a transaxle or something, and we'd have to jump something up in the capital plan. But I really liked doing like that capital summit, just basic presentation I just showed you, something along those lines, because it gets people to think about this capital, 1, more frequently, and 2, in a different way than just, that's my dump truck, I want a new dump truck.
Can you use that with a building as well?
You can. The problem with buildings is that, until you start doing these assessments, they are extremely complex, right? There is a lot of moving parts, in a non-moving building, right? So you just think about, the municipal center. So you've got repointing of the brick that has to, you got to keep up on that. You've got your caulking and glazing on your windows. You've got the HVAC system. You've got electrical. You've got floors. You've got, roof. You got solar panels up there. What challenge does that present on roofing? You got all these different variables. And so what you need to be doing, you don't have to know that roof is going to cost $1.8 million. You need to know that roof was replaced in, I don't know, and I don't know when it was replaced. This is just a guess, year 2000. And now we're in 2021. And so, the life expectancy of the product we bought was 30 years. So as we get closer to that 30-year mark, not only do we need to be paying more attention, but we need to be thinking about how it is that we would fund the replacement of that. And then what will happen is you won't have the money to do it, and you'll put it on the back burner, and then you will borrow for it at the last possible minute, because that's what happens every time when you have something that is as unsexy as a roof and as expensive as a roof, right? And something you can't do in pieces. You can't spend $5,000 a year on a roof and just keep chipping away at it like you can on, say, repointing. It's pretty much all or nothing. So.
Okay. So how do we go about getting an idea of what's going on in each of the buildings? You said something about an assessment.
Yep. So we can get assessments that I have assessments, building assessments, but we can also work with Maya, our umbrella insurance company that insures all of our buildings, to work with us on both the assessment process, and there's generally a grant that comes out annually from them that will be maybe 10 to 15,000, in which you could fund to do, either purchase things that will help us do the assessments ourselves, or hire a company. And so one of the things we did here in Munson is we hired a roofing company. I think we paid them a few $1,000s, and they went and did all of the roof inspections, for us. One, because they generally know more about roofs than we do, and 2, they have the liability insurance to put somebody on a roof. So we can certainly, start down that road to try to get a better assessment. And that might bear out a little bit too, as we talk to the school department about facilities and maintenance, and what does that mean, and is there any ability for us to work together to save money?
Yeah, no, North Street needs a new roof, and that's on our 5-year plan. They actually do have this one in 4 sections because of the way the roof is put together.
Yep.
And it looks like $2 million to do the whole thing.
And one of the things that we'll have to decide as it gets closer is, if you are going to do, let's say, the accelerated roof repair project program under MSBA funding, where they'll fund, 50 or 60% of the roof, you might do all of it in one shot because the money is there, right? That state incentive is there, as opposed to, if we have to pay go on ourselves, then, yeah, absolutely. Four sections, $500,000 a year or whatever. So, and that's part of this too, right? Is looking at those things on, if we do a quarter of it a year, is it going to cost us 2.2 million by the time we're done, as opposed to if we borrowed for it all in one shot, can we do it for less? Because that company doesn't have to mobilize 4 different times. They're just going to come out and bang it out. And so we need to be, kind of cognizant of that stuff as well.
Looks like we also have the South Grafton Elementary School roof on the 5-year plan as well. So
You're bumming me out, Greg.
but that's the only 2. I think the other 4 are good.
By the time we do those 2, the other 2 will be ready.
Yep.
Yeah. So but those are just kind of my general thoughts on how that goes.
So that's exciting to know that the insurance company can help and that there's grants out there. Is there a certain time of year? I mean, summer is going to be kind of our slow month in capital planning, so it gives us an opportunity to look at these things. But is there a better time of year when do the grants typically come out, or how would you work that?
So I think the grants usually come out in the fall, and they have to be expended or at least allocated by, trying to go off my memory here, May, I think, is about when you have to do that. So they're usually 2 grants. One, we have the Maya Rewards program, which as we do certain things, Maya actually pays us to do trainings, roof assessments, blah, 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 blah. And then they kick us back money off of our insurance bill. And then they also come out with a risk, I think they call it the risk management or risk mitigation grant. And you can combine those 2 pots of money to do, a project like roof assessments or, HVAC assessments or whatever it is you want to do. And then you contract with some company that comes in and they'll tell you where your infrastructure is and how much life you might have and what the estimated repair cost would be or replacement cost would be.
Evan, how
Sounds
competitive
like we
are
could
these
train.
grants?
What was that, Sue?
How competitive are these grants?
Not very. I've
very?
never, I've had times where I've asked for 10 grand and got 7,800, but I've never not gotten money. So the rewards money that comes back is basically, you have 2 options. You can either use it to offset your insurance costs, right, and put it towards the bill, or you can use it as a unrestricted grant, which is nice for something like this because you've already appropriated the money to pay for the insurance. You don't have a pot of money really to do this type of assessment work. So I know we've used it in a number of different ways. I just bought a light tower with the last pot of money, so that doesn't really apply here, but it was pretty cool. So,
Greg, did you have a question?
I was just saying that kind of sounds like what the schools did with Train. They had them come in and evaluate.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so what they're doing there, that's an ESCO, and that's it's basically a 25A procurement, they call it, which is you can select a designer who will come in and do all your design for you. And the idea is that you're then able to just contract with them rather than go out to bid, so that you're basically exchanging they're going to get the work in exchange for you not having to come up with 200 grand up front to do a study. So we were just doing one when I left, and I just met with Jay and Anita last week. 2 weeks ago now, about HVAC and part of that ESCO.
So is this part of your plan for the summer, reaching out to doing the Maya rewards thing, and this is kind of just already on your list, or?
Yeah, it's on there. I have to, I'll be honest with you, I've got to try to sit down with Mr. Berger on our side and Tony on the school side and talk about what we're already doing, what are already our known quantities of things we have to replace, and then which actually, Greg, to your point, the train project that the schools are doing identifies a lot of that stuff for us already. And so, we can leverage that to maybe focus those funds elsewhere. But yeah, it can be something that's just on our general list, and something we can execute over the summertime, and then we can pick a date in the fall to do I like to call it a summit because it sounds fancy, but the capital, whatever you want to call it, and get all the department heads, and hopefully we can do that together in a room, because that's a little more fun. Right. It's a lot of fun because, like I said, during the budgeting process, I like to get everybody in the room because you can get a much more collaborative outcome when people know what the other costs are, and what our priorities are. And I think you get a better overall project.
Perfect. All right. Well, what do you think we should be working on then this summer while we gear up towards the Capital Summit?
I would think that we could start doing needs assessments with all of the different departments. So keep the buildings, keep the thought about the buildings alive. They're going to be kind of their own animal. But for the other departments that really aren't overseeing their own building maintenance, we should be talking to them about making sure they're going down, we can get the fleet list out to them. We can make sure that we're capturing all of the things that they have in-house that they're going to want to replace. Because, there's things out there that we have not captured yet, that will come up and say, oh yeah, that's right, I need $40,000 for this, and it broke yesterday, and now we can't, sweep the streets or whatever it is. Not picking on highway. I don't know. They probably have a great program, but these are the things that happen. And so we want to make sure that we're capturing that stuff.
Okay.
Now, I will say though, that during my tour of highway, I was with Kevin Gallagher, and he knew when everything needed to be replaced as we went. Oh, this is our track list. It's got X number of hours on it, and we probably need another one 3 years from now. He knew all of that, and so we just got to make sure that we've captured all of it onto the paper.
Yep. Perfect. All right. Well, does anybody have any other questions at this point? Well, thank you so much for coming in and covering all of that. The only other,
helpful?
yeah, the only other thing was to discuss creating a capital spending and tracking system, but I'm pretty sure we just covered all of that, or a lot of it, in that conversation. So yeah.
So let's back up just for a second, not to belabor that, but what are you looking to accomplish there? You mean you want to have a capital plan that shows both what you need to fund, but also what you already have funded?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we want to show, is so that taxpayers have a better idea of where the money went and what they got from it. It's really easy to show them a dump truck, but like you said, it's not always easy to say, oh, but we also got in, something that they can't always just put their finger on.
Right. I'm just looking real quick. I uploaded all of my files into the Grafton's Google Drive here, but it's not super easy to navigate here. So capital needs assessment. 1 second. Just show you if I can see if I can show you what we were doing. That one. Just bear with me for 1 second. So let me share something with you just real quick, and then I know everybody probably done looking at capital stuff here. Okay, so this is, and I'm sorry, I have no idea how to make this smaller. Oh, good, there we go. Okay, so this is our capital plan, and that Mary and I work off of. This is not for Grafton. We haven't gotten that far yet, but what we do here is, very similar, I think, to what you folks are doing. So, we give everything a code here, the project title, project location, project description, project justification, which is a big piece. We want to make sure that the department heads are justifying why that purchase is needed, as opposed to just, it's old and I want something new. The type, which breaks it up, open space, vehicles, you've got a lot of different, you've got little drop downs here of how to categorize that. Project type, whether it's replace or it's new, original year purchased, life cycle. Priority is a big one. So we would have them rate from 1 to 5 what priority is. So when push came to shove, if it was, one project was just off the plan, one perfect project was inside the plan, and the one inside the plan was not a huge need, then we would bump it. And then you can see that we would go out and have our funding source, operating budget impacts, who submitted it, any comments, and then we would we kind of got away from this scoring a little bit, because it just got a little arbitrary depending on who was annoying you at any given time. And then increase effectiveness of government, right? You can scale it there. Good steward. So these are all categories that we wound up building in. Reduce operating costs. So this is your return on investment, right? This is where that money is going to go. But then we have another tab, and this is going to be way too small. This is our completed projects tab. And so we would, every single purchase, we would cut that out of the other side and then put it into here, so that when you went and did your annual report or your presentation to town meeting about what it is that you purchased, you can just go grab everything right from here. And you have all the data that you need to be able to make that happen. And then you would also create your, expected life expectancy and so on and so forth. Sorry, Sue, go ahead.
I would just want to ask about your completed projects. Is that just for that year, or do you have like several years included with the completed projects?
Several years. And so I think if you go, this is where we were capturing when we funded it. Sorry, I'm pointing at the screen. That's not helpful. This column here is where we would capture that, and then be able to go back and say, this is where that money came from, but also when we wanted to push that information out to the public. That's what we would do.
All right.
So we could easily adapt something like this to what we're doing here in Grafton, I think. It doesn't have to be this. This is just what we were doing before.
So do you put projects on this this list that are not complete yet, that have several years to go?
Yeah, so let me see if I can show you an example of that, because yes, what winds up happening is, see the columns over here on the right that tell you the fiscal year.
Yep.
So if it was a multi-year project, it would show up in more than one fiscal year in this column.
Okay.
And that's how you knew it. Oh, geez. Showing my Google ineptness here. Let me see if I can find one that does that. So here, this is Hillcrest Cemetery expansion. It was a $75,000 project that you see here on the right. And we broke that up into 3 years. And this is how you did it. So it helps if you're going to be more than 5 years, like this plan is capturing your immediate 5 years. And then it has places where you've got, your 10, 5, 10, 15 year look ahead, but they just kind of float out there and come closer, and then bump onto your 5 year. And then, so they're out there, but that's not your focal point. Yeah.
This is great. I like the way you set this all up.
Thanks. I gotta be honest with you. I did this with a grant with the Collins Center. So not all of it is like Mary and my wonderful ideas, but we had a lot of input into it, and we really embraced it. And they actually, the Collins Center had me come and present this capital plan at one of their events they had up at Stowe. Because I think partly because we embraced it so much. I mean, Munson went from funding just whatever they had in free cash to having a real capital plan that, you know,
Yeah.
the department heads were very skeptical when we started that they would not get what they needed. And then the farther along we went, the more on board they got, and seeing that we were actually funding these projects and replacing things in a timely manner and able to do more efficient things because, you know, the technology's changed and now we can do really cool stuff.
Mhm. It's great.
So
So when it comes to a completed project list, how do you guys feel? Do you want to do like starting now, or do you want to try to find everything we funded in FY 21 and start there? It's just harder to go back anything previous from this year because we didn't get any submission forms. This is the first year where we have all of the data to build the list.
it must be in the warrant somewhere though, no?
They're in the warrants, yes.
So we could in theory go back and pull some of that data out to give you a little bit better look back.
Yeah, town meeting minutes go back online to 2015. So we could get some of that stuff out, assuming that all the details are in there.
Outside of this capital planning, Evan, how do you do a town-wide inventory of town-owned land, et cetera, of things, roads, what we do? How do you set that up?
So, you know, my experience on that varies. So I always wanted to do an asphalt management plan and inventory. That's where you go and hire a company that comes out and assesses every mile of road you have and gives you advice on when to do what and when. And that's really, to me, that's the best practice to do it. I wasn't ever able to do that in Munson, although I did fund it in the town meeting that's coming up when I won't be there anymore, which is, you know, kind of, I might just show up and just follow them around just to feel a sense of accomplishment. But you know, the overarching thing is you really should be doing that. And that was always a challenge. So when we started this plan, let me see if I can find one. So highway had things like Wales Route Road improvements, you'll see right here. And the hard part was getting highway to understand or to buy into the fact that just because you're funding it with funds that are not operational or capital costs or capital expenses doesn't mean it's not a capital expense and doesn't need to be captured and cataloged somewhere. Having talked to Paul and Kevin, I don't think that would be a challenge here as far as getting them to play with the capital plan itself. I don't know what level of assessment we're currently doing. Whether we're hiring, you know, a company to come in and do that asphalt management plan, or if we've got some kind of variation of that in-house. I'm not entirely sure yet.
We do have a committee that has looked at all of the roads and has determined how many roads would be done each year and which.
Yep. And that's definitely a way to do it. The asphalt management planning companies come in with vehicles that actually scan the road and then tell you, you know, what's the best method for spending money efficiently on that road. So, you know, they'll come in and say, okay, this road needs sealing, and it'll get you another 10 years of life expectancy. But that road over there, too far gone, got to repave the whole thing. And then all these other variations, you know, in between. But they kind of show you how you can spend less money to get more life expectancy out of it. But I don't
Yeah.
know. I've never talked to Paul about that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, you can go ahead and finish. 'Cause mine's more of a collective. So if there's something else you want to add.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I think that's, a great point, because I think if we get to a point where we enter 1 year and we have, several roads we need to do, plus 2 roofs, plus we need to replace, this, it may get to a point where we come up in a lot of different projects kind of across the board and need to fund them. So if there's a way to create a list or, a document that, we can look out and say, okay, in 10 years, we have 10 big things coming up that are going to be bigger than our budget. We can start planning for this now and get ahead of it. I'm not sure that type of document exists that lives across like roads and buildings and vehicles and everything else. But I think that'd be an interesting way to look at it to plan ahead.
Absolutely. And that's, I think that's the best practice, right? Is to capture all of that, because if you've got you don't want to borrow, $2 million for a roof in fiscal 21 and then $2 million in fiscal 22. You want to short-term borrow in 21 and then bond 4 million in 22, because you're going to get better rates and better bond proceeds, right? And you can take those bond proceeds and pay down the principal and save the taxpayer money. So that's an excellent strategy, is to look at all of those projects, on the whole, and try to bundle them.
Yeah. One thing that we didn't capture in our process this year is the current state of the road stabilization fund, the capital stabilization fund, and what's being done out of them. So that would be something that'd be good to capture for next year, just to say this is what's being done, even if we're not recommending any priorities for them because they're coming out of this other fund, but something to have on our list, which is what we've said we wanted, is the ability to capture all the capital expenses in the town, so people can see where their tax money is going and what services they're getting out of it.
Absolutely. One of the things we talked about this, I think, briefly, either at FinCom or here, was the platform that we were using here, which is called ClearGov, which is the budgeting software and the online transparency portal. One of the neat things about that is they have a projects section. So if you're a resident, you can go on and click on the project, and it shows, we, the town, can upload pictures, project status, how much money we've spent so far out of the appropriation, all of that thing. So we demolished a school here, and people kind of got into it, because every week we would put up another, 4 or 5 pictures and show that, we expended another $88,000 this week. And this is the phase of the project, and it has a little timeline bar that kind of moves along as you move that, down the field. And so that was a real kind of cool way to show people that. And then once you finish the project, you would click complete, and it'd move that project into the completed file, so people could go back and look at what's happened over time.
Yeah, I heard you talk about the ClearGov stuff at the last FinCom meeting, and I thought that sounds very interesting, and something that I think people would really like to be able to see the details on the budget. So it's not just some 230-page unapproachable book.
Yeah. Yeah. So anything else? I don't want to, inundate you.
No, I'm just excited because you talked about so many things that I want to go do immediately. I want to get the insurance company out here. I want to go call the Collins Center and have them help us make this. I want to get ClearGov up with all the pictures on there, and I
Yeah.
I do it all. Everything you said, I want to make happen. So
In time, Colleen, we'll get there.
Yeah.
I know I'm not good at slow.
That took me 7 years over here. So, so year 1, Evan, I don't know if he's going to handle all of it, but no, I think we can work together. I think we can get some really good outcomes here.
Just what you did with this, how you showed all the capital that are currently being done and completed and everything, just that would be wonderful. We could get that going right away.
Yeah. I think we'll be able to do that. we already have the template, so.
You do.
Um,
It's great. It's not like we're reinventing the wheel.
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, there's no real reason to. This was a really solid plan. That was Sarah Concanon is her name, and actually, we're talking to them about our salary and classification study. Same folks, so.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, they're nice people. Anything else, or do we want to let Kyle go home and take a rest after he's got his vaccine?
I think Kyle wants to go rest. So
Yeah, I would.
I'm just enjoying the dramatic lighting I have now. So
It is fantastic. Fantastic
Yes.
lighting.
yes,
well, thank you so much for coming in and enlightening us with all of that. That was a lot, and I'm very excited.
It's a good pun, considering Kyle over here.
a great
Yes.
pun, a great pun.
The highlight of the meeting.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, we can really start at any time that you folks want to. I mean, we can start plugging stuff in. And I think we got to get through the budget first, to be honest with you. I got a couple of projects that are kind of, the timeline's all coming together for town meeting. And so after that, I think we'll free up some time and we can really hit the ground running with this.
Perfect.
All
Well,
right.
that's exciting. So we'll hit you up in like June or July and figure it out.
Yeah, then we can run with it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Go enjoy your evening.
Yeah, I gotta go put the 4-year-old to bed.
Yeah.
She's out there in the hall. I can hear her lurking.
I
So.
just escaped and came over.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We must have hid the screwdrivers. Mine hasn't come through the door yet. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone and have a great night.
You too.
Thanks, Evan. Great presentation.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
All right. So the only thing we have left is meeting minutes. That, I don't know, did everybody get a chance to see the new set of minutes that Greg sent out?
He sends them out the end of our meeting at night. So I read them a long time ago.
He sent out an updated version right before the meeting.
Oh,
It just had some updates.
Oh.
I didn't fill in everybody's name. I put in first
Oh.
names and went back and finished filling them in afterwards. So that was all I added
So
there.
it wasn't any drastic for your minutes.
No.
So I'll take a
Okay.
motion to approve those if anybody wants to do that.
I move we approve the minutes.
January
of
25th,
March
January
11th.
25th.
March 11th.
Excuse me, March 11th as
Okay.
presented.
The agenda is totally wrong. I'm sorry. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, so we'll take a vote. Greg,
Aye.
Sue, Kyle,
Aye.
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Colleen is aye. Okay, so the motion passes, but the agenda's wrong, so. And then I know we were talking about meeting once a month now. We have a lot of good information to maybe talk about in May to get ready for Evan in June. So what were we thinking? It's the second or the first Thursday? What was working for people? The second Thursday?
I
This
think
is
we
the second Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we can do May 13th.
There's a gold event on our calendar that day. I don't think we can do the 13th.
Okay.
Amy, is that
I can't do
something we're doing?
I'm moderating a panel discussion for Girl Scouts that night, so I can't do it.
Okay.
You could.
We could push a week too and do May 20th if that works.
Works on my end.
Okay.
Okay.
Does that work for everybody else, May 20th?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll do May 20th and we'll do 7 o'clock again. Does that work well for everybody?
Yeah.
All right. So we'll do that. We'll put a agenda together to talk about that and then start having a good summer. I'm excited.
I have to say that what he presented tonight is something that I wish we've been doing for a long, long time. I mean, it's so transparent and it's so complete and it's so comprehensive and it's so easy to understand that I'm like you, Colleen, I'm excited to get going on all of
Yeah.
this so that town can see what's going on.
Yep.
and when it went on and when it was completed and everything else. So
That ClearGov idea, that I would have fun checking that and seeing the projects like, oh, we just got that. I mean, maybe I have too much time. I don't know, but
ever, if we ever received any grants from MIAA, did we, Maya, did we receive grants from them? I don't recall.
not that I recall. I mean, I didn't even know you could do that and it would save us money on insurance. I don't know why that wasn't something that was just a done deal. Or maybe it happened so long ago and it's time to do it again. I don't know.
I don't recall ever seeing anything from Maya, but it could have been. But I don't know. It makes a lot of sense anyway.
Sure does. All right, well, if that's it, I'll take a motion to adjourn so Kyle and Amy can go to bed.
So moved. I hope you're feeling better soon, Amy.
Mm.
Second,
All right, motion is second. So Greg,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Kyle,
Aye.
Amy,
aye.
and Colleen is aye. All right, so we are adjourned.